Hello, everyone, and welcome to Super English Talks. I'm your host, Jara, and I'm so happy you're here with me today. Maybe you're listening on your way to work, maybe you're walking outside, or maybe you're just relaxing at home. Wherever you are, I'm glad you decided to spend this time with me. Together, we are on a journey. And this journey is not only about learning English. It's about feeling English, living English, and speaking it with real confidence. The kind of confidence you've always wanted. Today, I want to talk about something very important. Something that might be stopping you from speaking English freely. It's a habit that many English learners have. This habit is like an invisible wall. You don't always see it, but it's there and it blocks your fluency. This habit is translation. Yes, that constant process of taking words from your native language, translating them in your head into English, and then saying them out loud. It feels logical, right? It makes sense at the beginning. After all, that's how we first learn. But if you really want to speak English naturally, if you want to be fluent, then you must stop translating. You need to start thinking in English. And I promise you this, by the end of this episode, you will understand how to do that. You will have both the tools and the mindset to begin this transformation. This is not just about a new trick or study method. No, this is bigger. It's about changing the way you see the English language. It's about building a new relationship with it. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman named Elena. She was from Spain. Elena was a brilliant architect. In her native language, Spanish, she was funny, smart, and very confident. She could explain complex building designs with passion and precision. One day, Elena moved to London for an amazing job opportunity. She was excited, but also a little scared. Her English was good on paper. She had studied for years. She passed all her exams with high scores. But when she had to use English at work, in meetings with colleagues, something unexpected happened. The words didn't come out right. She would start speaking, but then she would stop. There would be long, awkward pauses. Inside her head, she was busy translating. She thought in Spanish first. Then she tried to change every word into English. For example, she wanted to say, "The structure needs steel support." But in her mind, she built the sentence piece by piece, word by word, in Spanish first. By the time she finished, her English sounded slow and unnatural. Her sentences lost their flow. Her colleagues waited politely, but the conversation kept moving forward without her. Elena felt trapped. It was like she was standing behind a glass wall. She could see and understand everything, but she couldn't join in naturally. And that's the sad part, because in Spanish, Elena was full of life. She was intelligent and expressive. But in English, she felt like a robot. Slow, mechanical, not herself. Does this sound familiar to you? Have you ever felt the same way? You know exactly what you want to say in your own language, but when you try to say it in English, there's a big gap. This is what I call the translation trap. And today, we're going to learn how to escape it. But first, let's understand why this happens. Why do we translate in the first place? The answer is simple. Translation feels safe. Our native language is our comfort zone. It's our home base. When we start learning English, we connect every new English word to a word we already know in our language. For example, dog means perro in Spanish, or chin in Chinese, or Hund in German. It feels natural to do this. It feels like a bridge that helps us cross into English. But here's the problem. If we never stop translating, that bridge turns into a wall. Instead of helping us, it slows us down. It keeps us from speaking freely. And that's what we are going to work on today, breaking free from the translation trap so that English stops being something you convert and starts being something you think in, live in, and breathe. When we first start learning English, translation is useful. It's like a first step. It helps us build our vocabulary. It gives us a way to understand new words. But here's the problem. If we keep translating for too long, it becomes a crutch. Something we lean on too much. Imagine a child learning to walk. At first, the child holds onto a chair or a parent's hand. That support is helpful at the beginning. But if the child never lets go, if they never take steps on their own, their legs won't grow strong. Translation is the same. At first, it supports us. But later, if we keep holding on to it, it actually stops us from walking confidently in English. Instead of experiencing English directly, we see it only through the lens of our own language. It's like trying to enjoy a beautiful painting by reading a description of it, instead of just looking at it with your own eyes. The description might tell you some facts, maybe the size, the colors, the subject. But it will never give you the true feeling. It won't capture the emotions, the small details, the beauty of the original artwork. English is the same. It has its own rhythm, its own structure, its own music. But when we translate, we force English into the rules of our native language, and it doesn't fit perfectly. Now, let's think about the consequences of this habit. The first problem is speed. Translating is a two-step process. First, you think in your own language. Then, you change it into English. A native speaker or a fluent English speaker has only one step. They think in English and speak in English. That's it. Imagine you're in a fast, fun conversation with friends. Someone tells a joke. You hear the joke. You translate it into your language. You think of a funny answer in your language. Then you translate that answer back into English. By the time you're ready to speak, the moment is gone. Everyone has already laughed and moved on to the next topic. And how do you feel? Slow. Left out. Not because you don't understand, but because your brain is taking a long detour. This constant delay is exhausting. It's one of the reasons why speaking English for a long time makes you feel so tired. Your brain is doing double work, first your language, then English. The second problem is accuracy and naturalness. Languages are not just lists of words you can swap one for one. Each language has its own rules, grammar, and special ways of putting words together. English has something called collocations. These are words that naturally go together. For example, in English, we say make a mistake, not do a mistake. If a Spanish speaker translates hacer un error directly, they might say do a mistake. People will understand, but it will sound unnatural. Right away, listeners can hear that the person is translating. Here are more examples. We take a shower, not give a shower. We spend time, not pass time. These are not rules you can simply memorize. They are patterns you need to hear, see, and absorb by living with the language. When you translate, you don't absorb these patterns. Instead, you try to force your own language's patterns onto English, and that's why the result sounds strange. And then, of course, there are idioms. Idioms are the biggest challenge for translation. Every language has colorful expressions that make no sense if you translate them word for word. For example, in English, we say, "That car must have cost you an arm and a leg." If you translate this literally, you might imagine something terrible, a very bloody transaction. But that's not what it means. It simply means the car was very expensive. So, when we translate, we miss the natural flow, the rhythm, the collocations, and the meaning of idioms. Translation makes our English slower, less natural, and sometimes even confusing. Now, I want you to think about an idiom from your own language. Imagine what it would sound like if you translated it word for word into English. It would probably sound very strange, right? Let me give you a real example. I had a friend from Poland named Piotr. One day, Piotr wanted to tell his English boss not to worry about a small problem. In Polish, they have a saying that translates directly to mustard after lunch. So Piotr said to his boss, "Don't worry, it's just mustard after lunch." His boss froze. He didn't laugh. He didn't relax. He just looked completely confused. What Piotr wanted to say was something closer to the English idiom, "It's no use crying over spilled milk." That idiom means there's no point in being upset about something that already happened and cannot be changed. But because Piotr translated directly, the message was lost. Instead of creating comfort, it created confusion. And this is what happens with literal translation. It makes you feel like an outsider, like you're standing next to the conversation but not fully inside it. These little mistakes remind you, again and again, that you are translating instead of speaking naturally. So, let's sum it up. The habit of translation slows you down, makes your speech sound unnatural, leads to confusing mistakes, and keeps you tied to your native language instead of letting you feel at home in English. So, what's the solution? The solution is simple to say, but harder to do. We must learn to think in English. Now, don't panic when you hear that. I'm not saying you have to think all of your thoughts in English right now. That would be impossible and incredibly stressful. This is not about forcing yourself. It's about training your brain step by step. Think of it like building a muscle. At first, the muscle is weak. You can't lift heavy weights right away. You start small. You practice little by little. Over time, the muscle grows stronger. Learning to think in English works the same way. The goal is to create a direct link between your thoughts, ideas, or objects around you and the English words for them, without passing through your native language first. For example, you see a tree. At the beginning, your brain might think, "Árbol tree." But eventually, we want to skip the Spanish word árbol. We want your brain to see the object and immediately think tree. No translation in between. You are building a new pathway in your brain. A direct pathway. So, how do we begin? We start very, very small. In fact, the first step is so small that you might think, this is too easy. But I promise, it's powerful. Here's what I want you to do. When this podcast ends, take 5 minutes. Wherever you are, in your room, your office, your car, outside in the park, look around you. Choose objects around you and label them in English in your mind. For example, you see a cup. Say to yourself, cup. You see a table. Say, table. You see a window. Say, window. And keep going.
Chair,
Lamp.
book,
Pen.
phone,
Computer. Don't translate into your language first. Just look at the object and connect it directly to the English word. That's it. 5 minutes of practice is enough to begin training your brain to break the translation habit. This might feel silly at first, almost too simple, but it's not silly at all. It's a powerful exercise. You are retraining your brain. You are telling it, stop translating. Build a new habit. Build a direct connection. Let me share a story. One of my students, Kenji from Japan, was very diligent. He studied hard, but he spoke English slowly. He told me, "I feel like my brain is a dictionary. I have to search through it for every word." I gave him the same exercise. I told him, Get some sticky notes, the little pieces of paper with glue on the back. Write the English name of each object in your house. Then stick the notes onto the objects. So Kenji wrote mirror and stuck it to his mirror. Refrigerator on his refrigerator. Door on his door. Sofa on his sofa. Everywhere he looked, English words were waiting for him. Every day, as he walked around his home, he wasn't surrounded by Japanese words anymore. He was surrounded by English. When Kenji went to get a glass of water, he would see this sticky note on his cup. He wasn't sitting at a desk with a textbook. He wasn't doing grammar drills. He was just living his normal life. But slowly, something amazing started to happen. After a few weeks, he didn't even notice the sticky notes anymore. But the English words stayed in his mind. He would look at his sofa, and the word sofa would pop up, not the Japanese word. He had successfully built that direct mental link between the object and the English word. This is a fantastic, practical way to begin. You are creating your own little English world, even if you don't live in an English-speaking country. Now, once you feel comfortable with single words, it's time to take the next step. Simple sentences. Here's the idea. You're going to become the narrator of your own life. You're going to describe what you are doing, but in short, very simple English sentences. And remember, you don't have to say these sentences out loud. You can just think them in your head, like a private conversation with yourself. Let's imagine you're making your morning coffee. Your inner narration might sound like this. I am walking to the kitchen. I am opening the cupboard. I am taking a cup. Now I need the coffee. I am putting coffee in the cup. I am boiling water. The water is hot. I am pouring the water into the cup. I am adding some milk. I am stirring my coffee with a spoon. Now I am drinking my coffee. It is good. Notice how short and clear these sentences are.
Subject, verb, object.
That's it. I am walking. The water is hot. We're not trying to write poetry. We're not writing a novel. The goal is to train your brain to form sentences directly in English, without building them in your native language first. This practice is wonderful because you can do it anytime, anywhere. Getting dressed in the morning. I am putting on my shirt. This shirt is blue. I am tying my shoes. Cooking dinner? I am chopping vegetables. The onion is making me cry. I am heating the pan. You are turning your daily routines into free English lessons. You're training yourself to think in English about what is happening in the present moment. In fact, this is like combining mindfulness with language learning. You're paying attention to your life, and at the same time, you're practicing English. Let me share another story. A listener named Maria from Brazil once told me about her experience. She worked in a busy office and always felt like she didn't have enough time to study English. Then she started using this exact technique during her commute. She would sit on the bus and describe what she saw in simple English sentences. For example, I see a tall building. A woman is walking her dog. The dog is small and white. The bus is stopping. People are getting on the bus. An old man is wearing a funny hat. At first, it was hard. She had to stop and search for words in her head. But day after day, it became easier. She noticed her vocabulary growing naturally.
Why?
Because when she didn't know a word, she made a note of it and looked it up later. For example, one day she saw a big yellow machine at a construction site. She didn't know the English word. She just thought, big yellow machine for digging. Later, at work, she looked it up and learned the word excavator. The next day on the bus, she saw the same machine. But this time, she smiled and thought, I see an excavator. It was a small victory. But small victories like this, repeated again and again, build massive confidence over time. Maria was no longer just a passive learner reading textbooks or memorizing lists of words. She became an active observer. She was using English to connect with the world around her, even if it was just inside her own head. That's the transformation we want. Once you feel comfortable describing simple things, what you see, what you're doing, the next step is to go a little deeper. Start using English to talk about your opinions, your feelings, and your plans. In other words, begin having simple conversations with yourself. For example, instead of only saying, "I am making coffee," you can expand the thought. "I am making coffee. I think I will have breakfast after this. What should I eat? Maybe I'll have some toast and eggs. Oh, but I don't have any eggs. I need to go to the supermarket later. I will add that to my list." See the difference? You're not only describing anymore. You're planning. You're problem solving. You're thinking about the future in English. This is a huge step forward because now you're using English for real mental tasks, not just repeating words. And you can do this anytime, anywhere. For example, when you're getting dressed in the morning, you can have a little debate in English. Should I wear the red shirt or the blue one? The red one looks nice, but it might be too warm today. I think the blue one is a better choice. It's more comfortable. You see? You're practicing decision-making in English. That's real-life thinking. Here's another example. Let's say you're about to do something simple, something you probably do often, like going to a cafe to buy coffee. This is a perfect opportunity for practice. Before you even leave the house, rehearse the whole interaction in your mind in English. Imagine the conversation step by step. You, "Hello, can I have a large latte, please?" Barista, "Sure. For here or to go?" You, "To go, please." Barista, "Would you like anything else with that?" You, "No, thank you. That's all." Barista, "Okay, that'll be 4.50, please." You, "Here you are."
Thank you.
Barista, "Have a great day." You too. By rehearsing this in your head, you're preparing your brain for the real conversation. When you actually walk into the cafe, you won't feel nervous and you won't be stuck translating. You'll already have the words ready. You'll sound natural, confident, and relaxed. This technique is powerful. In fact, it's exactly what actors do before they perform on stage. They don't just read their lines once. They rehearse again and again until the words come naturally. You're doing the same thing, but instead of preparing for a play, you're preparing for real life in English. This kind of mental rehearsal lowers anxiety and makes speaking English much easier in real situations. Now, so far we've talked about techniques you can do by yourself. Labeling objects, narrating your daily life, having internal conversations. But language is not only about what you produce. It's also about what you absorb. It's about immersion. It's about listening to the natural rhythm and flow of English. That's where resources like podcasts, including this one, movies, and TV shows become so valuable. But here's the key: how you use them matters. Many learners watch English shows or movies with subtitles in their native language. And yes, it feels safe. It helps you follow the story. But here's the problem. When you do that, you're actually strengthening the translation habit. Your brain sees the English, but instead of listening, it jumps straight to your own language. You're not really hearing English, you're reading and translating. So, here's my challenge for you. The next time you watch a movie or TV show in English, try using English subtitles, not subtitles in your language. Let's say you forget the word umbrella. Instead of jumping back to your native language, you could say, "It's something you use when it rains." You open it above your head to stay dry. The listener will understand, and often they'll supply the word for you. umbrella. Or imagine you can't remember the word microwave. You might say, it's a machine in the kitchen. You put food inside, press a button, and it gets hot very quickly. Again, you've successfully communicated without translating. This is how you train your brain to stay in English. You're not stuck because you don't know one word. You're using your creativity and your existing knowledge to keep the conversation flowing. And every time you do this, your confidence grows. Circumlocution is powerful for two reasons. First, it keeps you in English mode, which is essential for breaking the translation habit. Second, it mirrors real-life communication. Even native speakers forget words or don't know a technical term. They explain around it until the other person understands. This makes your English more natural, flexible, and resilient. Now, here's your challenge. The next time you can't think of a word, don't freeze and don't translate. Pause, breathe, and explain it in simple English. You'll be surprised how resourceful you already are. The learning must be enjoyable. If it feels like a chore, you won't keep doing it. But if your feed is full of things you already love, football, fashion, technology, cooking, travel, you'll naturally spend more time in English without even realizing it. This is how you build your English bubble. It's not just about formal study. It's about surrounding yourself with the language in small, constant, everyday ways. Your phone, your music, your podcasts, your social media, all of these can work together to create an environment where English feels normal. The more you do this, the more your brain will stop treating English as foreign. Instead, it becomes simply another way to live your life. And when that happens, something powerful changes. You're no longer studying English. You're living in English. Now, let's make this practical. Think of 3 areas in your daily routine where you can switch something into English.
For example,
Technology, phone settings, apps, or even your Google searches. Entertainment, switch YouTube, Netflix, or music playlists to English. Information, news, social media, or hobby-related accounts in English. Choose just one today and change it. Tomorrow, maybe add another. Slowly, piece by piece, you're building your own English world. A listener named Fatima from Egypt told me a story. She loves gardening. She wanted to improve her English, so she changed her phone language to English. Then she started following famous gardeners from the UK and the US on social media. Very soon, she began learning new words like soil, pruning, seedlings, and fertilizer. She didn't learn them from a textbook. She learned them by looking at beautiful pictures of plants and reading short posts about something she already enjoyed. Because gardening was her passion, learning felt natural and fun. Now, let's talk about entertainment, the things you do to relax. What do you usually do when you want to take a break? Do you listen to music? Do you watch videos online? Do you listen to podcasts? All of these are golden opportunities to surround yourself with English. Here's one simple step. Create an English-only playlist. Fill it with songs you like from artists who sing in English. At first, it doesn't matter if you don't understand every word. Just enjoy the sound, the melody, and the rhythm. Music is a very powerful tool for language learning because it repeats. You will hear the same chorus many times. Slowly, the words will start to stick in your mind. And one day, you'll find yourself singing along. Without even noticing, you'll be practicing your pronunciation, your rhythm, and even your confidence. The same idea works for videos. On platforms like YouTube, you can find English videos on almost any topic you like. If you love video games, watch a gameplay video in English. If you enjoy makeup, watch a makeup tutorial from an English-speaking creator. If you like bicycles, watch a video about how to fix one. The best part is that the pictures and actions help you understand the words. For example, imagine a person in a video is fixing a bicycle. They say, "Now you need to tighten the bolt." At the same time, you see them tightening the bolt with a tool. Right away, your brain makes the connection. You don't need to translate. You learned the word bolt by seeing it, hearing it, and connecting it to the action. That is much more powerful than simply reading the word bolt on a vocabulary list with a translation. And now I want to introduce you to a very effective technique. It's not only good for thinking in English, but also for speaking more naturally. It is called shadowing. Have you heard of it before? Shadowing is simple, but it takes focus.
Here's how it works.
You listen to a native English speaker, and you repeat what they say immediately, just a tiny moment after them. You are like their shadow. Imagine a shadow follows a person wherever they go. You're doing the same with their voice. You try to copy everything, the pronunciation, the rhythm, the intonation, even the way their voice goes up and down. Why is shadowing so powerful? Because it forces you to stop translating. There is no time to translate. The speaker is talking too fast. You cannot listen to the English, change it into your language, think about it, and then say it back. You would fall behind. Instead, your brain makes a direct connection. Sound in, sound out. You hear the word, and your mouth repeats it right away. This is exactly how children learn their first language. They don't study grammar. They listen and they copy. That's what shadowing trains you to do. So, how can you start shadowing? It's easy. First, find a short audio clip. 1 or 2 minutes is perfect. It could be from a podcast, an audiobook, or even a short speech on YouTube. Make sure the speaker is clear and speaks at a normal speed, not too fast. Second, listen to the clip one time just to understand the general idea. Don't repeat yet, just listen. Third, play the clip again, and this time speak along with the speaker. Try to follow them as closely as you can. Don't worry if you miss a word or stumble.
Keep going.
Your job is to stay close like a shadow. If you keep practicing shadowing regularly, even for just a few minutes a day, your pronunciation will improve, your listening will improve, and your brain will get faster at thinking in English. When you try shadowing for the first time, it will feel very strange. Your mouth will not be used to moving so quickly. The sounds will feel new and maybe even uncomfortable. That's completely okay. The goal here is not perfection. The goal is practice. Just try to keep up with the speaker. Even if you miss some words, don't stop.
Keep going.
The more you repeat the same audio, the easier it will feel. Slowly, the words will start to flow more naturally. Your tongue, lips, and mouth will begin to remember how to make the sounds of English. This is called muscle memory. You are training your mouth just like an athlete trains their body. Let me give you a little example. Imagine I say this sentence. Learning a new language is a journey, not a destination. So, it's important to enjoy the process along the way. Now, your job is to imagine saying it right after me. You don't have time to think or translate. You just listen and copy the sounds. Pay attention to the rhythm. Learning a new language is a journey, not a destination.
Da 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 da.
Notice how the voice goes up and down. That's intonation. This is why shadowing is powerful. It helps you capture the music of English, the rhythm, the melody, the natural flow. These are things you cannot learn from a grammar book. They only come from listening and imitating. I once worked with a student named Leo from Italy. His English was good, but he spoke with a very strong Italian rhythm. Every sentence sounded a little stiff, like a robot. He started shadowing a podcast host he liked for just 10 minutes a day. At first, it was difficult, but he kept going. After 1 month, his speech had changed completely. He still had his Italian accent, which is beautiful, but his rhythm sounded much more natural. He spoke smoothly, with fewer pauses, and he told me, "For the first time, I feel like the English words are mine, not borrowed." Now let's talk about something bigger: the fear of making mistakes. Many learners are afraid of speaking because they worry about grammar, vocabulary, or pronunciation. Translating feels safe because you can prepare the sentence in your head. But thinking directly in English feels risky. You might ask yourself, what if I say the wrong word? What if my grammar is bad? What if people laugh at me? This fear is very common, but it can also be very dangerous. It can freeze you in conversations. You want to speak, but your fear holds you back. Here's the truth: mistakes are not your enemy. Mistakes are your teachers. Every time you make a mistake, you learn something new. Mistakes show that you're pushing yourself, trying new things, and growing. Nobody in the world has ever learned a language without making thousands of mistakes. Even native English speakers make mistakes every single day. They say the wrong word. They forget how to finish a sentence. They use grammar incorrectly. That's normal communication. So we need to change our mindset. Instead of seeing mistakes as failures, we must see them as proof of progress. Every mistake is like a small step forward. Here's a fun trick to help you: create a language persona. What does that mean? In your native language, you are you. Maybe you are shy. Maybe you worry about what people think. But when you switch to English, you can pretend to be a different version of yourself. Your English character can be more confident, more playful, less afraid of mistakes. It's like acting in a play. If your English persona makes a mistake, it doesn't feel so personal. It's not you who failed. It's just the character learning. Many students find this very helpful because it gives them freedom to speak without fear. This little trick of creating an English persona can really free you up to take risks and experiment with the language. Let me tell you about a man I once knew, Sang-woo, from South Korea. In Korean, Sang-woo was very quiet, very reserved. He always chose his words carefully. This made him an excellent listener, but when it came to English, it became a problem. He was terrified of making mistakes. Every time he opened his mouth, he felt the pressure to be perfect. I suggested something unusual. I asked him to create an English name for himself. He chose Sam. And with that new name, he also created a new character, a new persona. Sam was not quiet or shy. Sam was a friendly, easygoing guy who liked to try things, even if they weren't perfect. When Sang-woo walked into his English class, he stopped being Sang-woo, the careful perfectionist. He became Sam, the brave explorer. And you know what? It worked. Sam asked questions in class. He tried to make jokes. He joined conversations. He made plenty of mistakes, but instead of freezing up, he laughed them off. By stepping into this new character, Sang-woo gave himself permission to be imperfect. And that small shift changed everything. His speaking improved dramatically because he finally allowed himself to practice without fear. Now, here's another key idea. Focus on communication, not perfection. Think about it. What is the purpose of language? It's not to impress someone with perfect grammar. It's to connect with another person, to share an idea, a story, or a feeling. Imagine this. You say, "Yesterday I go to the store." Is that perfect grammar?
No.
A native speaker would say, "Yesterday I went to the store." But here's the important part. Did the other person understand you?
Yes.
100%. You successfully communicated. That is a victory. Too often, We get stuck on small grammar rules and forget the bigger picture. In the real world, nobody is walking around with a red pen ready to grade you. People just want to understand you and connect with you. So give yourself permission to be understood, not to be perfect. Now let's return to our practice of thinking in English, our internal monologue. Remember, we started simple. I am making coffee. Then we moved to simple planning. I need to buy eggs. That's a good start. But now, it's time to move up to the most advanced level. Complex thoughts, opinions, and problem solving. This is where you truly start to live in the language. This is where your fluency can explode. So, how does this work? Simple. You take a topic you care about and explore it in your mind in English. Don't just stop at surface-level thoughts. Go deeper. Argue with yourself. Try to persuade yourself. Express your opinions. Let's say you just watched a movie. You could stop at, I liked it. But that doesn't build your language skills. Instead, ask yourself questions in English. For example, okay, what did I really think of that film? The acting was quite good, especially the main actress. But the plot, I'm not so sure about the plot. It felt a bit predictable. For example, I knew from the beginning that the best friend was the villain. It was too obvious. The director could have made it more subtle. On the other hand, the cinematography was beautiful. The way they used light and shadow was very effective. So, overall, how would I rate it? Maybe a 7 out of 10. It was enjoyable, but not a masterpiece. Do you see what's happening here? You are no longer just naming objects or making simple plans. You are exploring nuanced, complex ideas in English. You're using richer vocabulary, words like predictable, subtle, cinematography, masterpiece. These are not words you normally use in daily conversations, but by practicing them in your inner monologue, they become a natural part of your English. When you practice thinking in English like this, something amazing happens. You start comparing and contrasting ideas in your head. You begin forming reasoned arguments. You are having a smart, sophisticated conversation, all inside your own mind. The more you do this, the better prepared you will be when you actually have to speak to someone. For example, if a friend asks, "Did you like the movie?" You won't have to pause and translate your thoughts from your native language. Your opinions and ideas will already be there, fully formed in English. You can answer immediately, naturally, and confidently. And this isn't just about movies. You can do this with anything in your daily life. For example, read a news article. Summarize the main points in English in your mind and form an opinion. Think about a problem at work. Brainstorm solutions in English. For example, my project is behind schedule. What are my options? First, I could ask for an extension, but my boss might not approve. Second, I could work overtime for a few days. I would be tired, but it might help. Third, I could ask a colleague for help, but she might be busy. I think the best plan is to do a little of both. Work extra hours and ask my colleague to help with a small part. That seems reasonable. This is high-level thinking. And by practicing this in English, you are training your brain to think naturally in English. This is the final and most important step to breaking the translation habit forever. Now, all this internal thinking, narrating, planning, debating is fantastic. But we also need a way to capture these thoughts. Writing them down makes them more real and lets us see our progress. This is where a language journal becomes incredibly powerful. I'm not talking about writing perfect essays. No one will grade you. This is just a private space where you can practice English every day. Writing is a direct bridge from your thoughts to words on paper. It's also helpful because it slows down your thinking just a little, letting you notice patterns. When you write, your thoughts are slower and more deliberate. You notice vocabulary you don't know, grammar you're unsure about, and you can fix it step by step, all without pressure. Here's a simple way to start. Get a notebook or open a new document on your computer. Tonight, before you go to sleep, write one sentence in English. Just one. It could be about your day. Today I had a delicious lunch. It could be about your feelings. I am feeling a little tired but happy. It could be about tomorrow's plans. Tomorrow I need to call my friend. Just one sentence. It's so small that you can't make an excuse not to do it. Let me tell you about a listener named Anna from Germany. She started exactly like this. One sentence a day. After a week, she felt more comfortable and started writing 2 or 3 sentences. She described her daily routine. Then she began writing about her opinions, her hobbies, her dreams. Her journal became her friend. It was a safe space where she could just be in English. She even told me a wonderful story. One day, she was writing about a problem with her computer. Anna continued her journaling practice and discovered something amazing. One day, her computer froze, and she didn't know the word for the little spinning icon that shows the computer is thinking. Instead of giving up, she used a technique we learned earlier called circumlocution, which means describing something when you don't know the exact word. She wrote, "My computer is stuck, and I see the little circle that goes round and round." The next day, she looked it up and learned that it is called a spinning pinwheel or a loading icon. By writing down her description, she noticed a gap in her vocabulary and then filled it. Her journal became an active learning tool, not just a notebook. After a few months, she looked back at her first entry, which said something very simple. Today was a good day. She compared it to her most recent entry, a full paragraph describing a complicated idea. She could see her progress physically on the page. This gave her a big motivation boost and showed her how much she had improved. To make your practice even more powerful, I want you to combine it with another habit: thinking in questions. Many of us go through life passively. We see things, but we don't engage with them deeply. Fluency means becoming an active, curious observer of the world in English. Train your inner voice to ask questions. For example, as you walk down the street, don't just say, "I see a big building." Instead, ask, "Who built that building? How old is it? What materials did they use? Why did they choose that color? What is it used for?" You don't need to know the answers. The goal is to practice forming questions in English. This is an essential skill for conversation. By asking what, why, how, and I wonder questions, you turn the whole world into your classroom. You engage your curiosity, which is the engine of learning. When you see a word you don't know on a sign, your first thought will be, "What does that word mean?" Not, "I'll ignore it." When you listen to a song, you can ask, "What is this song about?" This constant questioning keeps your English brain active. You are no longer a passive learner. You are now an active participant in English. For example, if you read this podcast description, a passive learner might just read the title and move on. An active learner who thinks in questions might ask, "Why is translating a problem? I thought translating was good. Why not? What does naturally mean here? What tips will Jara give me?" This habit of curiosity prepares your brain to absorb and remember information much better. You become a detective in your own life, exploring everything in English. Now, let's talk about 2 other traps that often keep learners stuck: the grammar trap and the vocabulary trap. Escaping these is essential for thinking in English naturally. The grammar trap. Many of us learned English in a very academic way. We memorized verb conjugations, tense names like past perfect continuous, and complex rules about articles and prepositions. While this knowledge is useful, it can become a problem when speaking in real life. When you try to speak, you don't have time to be a grammar analyst. Imagine this. You want to describe a past hypothetical situation. You start thinking, okay, this is hypothetical, it happened in the past, so I need the third conditional. That's if plus past perfect, and then would have plus past participle. By the time you finish analyzing, the moment is gone. You've paused too long, and the conversation moves on. This is what the grammar trap feels like, thinking too much about rules instead of speaking naturally. The key is to practice forming sentences automatically, using the grammar you know without overthinking it. Later, we'll talk about simple exercises to escape the grammar trap and train your brain to speak smoothly. This method, memorizing lists of words with their translations, is just as slow and unnatural as translating in your head. When you see a word in English, your brain immediately jumps to your native language, then back to English to try to form a sentence. It's a detour, and it keeps you from thinking directly in English. The solution is to stop consciously applying grammar rules or translating every word. Instead, you need to train your brain to recognize patterns naturally, like you did when learning your first language. Think about it. As a child, you didn't study rules like past perfect or conditional tenses. You just listened to adults speaking thousands of hours, and your brain gradually learned what sounded right and what sounded wrong. We need to reactivate this natural learning mechanism for English.
How?
By immersing yourself in the language. When you listen to podcasts, watch movies, or read books in English, you are repeatedly exposing your brain to correct grammar and sentence structures. Over time, your brain absorbs the patterns automatically. Let me give you a story. Marco was an engineer from Brazil. He was very smart and loved rules. He could explain any English grammar rule perfectly. But when he spoke, his English was slow and awkward. He stopped to correct himself constantly, trapped in his own head, thinking about every rule before speaking. His breakthrough came when he decided to stop studying grammar books for a month. Instead, he committed to listening to a 30-minute English podcast every day during his commute. He chose a podcast about something he loved, the history of technology. At first, he felt anxious. He wanted to look up every rule he heard. But he resisted. He just listened. After a week, he started noticing patterns naturally. For example, he often heard sentences like, "If they hadn't invented the microchip, we wouldn't have smartphones today." He heard this if plus past perfect would have plus past participle pattern again and again, but he didn't think about it as a grammar rule. He just absorbed it from context. After a couple of weeks, something amazing happened. In a meeting at work, a colleague asked him a hypothetical question about a past project. Without thinking, Marco said, "Well, if we had started the project a month earlier, we would have avoided the holiday rush." The sentence just came out naturally. It was correct, and he didn't analyze it at all. His brain had absorbed the pattern from all his listening, and now he could use it automatically in the right situation. He had started to feel the grammar, not just memorize rules. Here's a practical exercise for you. The next time you are listening to English, become a pattern detective. Don't worry about tense names or rules. Just notice how English speakers use language in context. For example, listen to how people talk about plans. "I'm going to see a movie tonight." "She's planning to visit her family." "We're hoping to travel next year." Notice the pattern, subject plus verb, going to /planning to /hoping to plus space verb. That's all. Just observe. The more you notice these recurring patterns, the more they will become a natural part of your own speech. You will develop an internal sense of what sounds right, which is much more effective than memorizing grammar rules. Now, let's talk about the vocabulary trap. Most learners try to memorize English words using bilingual lists. For example, evidence equals prova.
Ejemplos igual a lograr.
What does this do? It creates a strong connection between English words and your native language, instead of a direct connection to meaning in English. So when you see a word, your brain immediately thinks in your native language, then translates it back to English. This slows you down and keeps you from thinking in English naturally. The better way is to learn words in context. Instead of memorizing lists, notice how words are used in sentences, stories, podcasts, or videos. When you connect a word to a real situation, an image, or an action, your brain remembers it naturally. You don't need translation. You start thinking of the word directly in English, which is exactly what fluency requires. Using bilingual word lists or translations forces your brain to translate. Every time you want to use a word like evidence, your brain first thinks of the word in your language, then jumps back to English. This slows you down and keeps you from thinking in English naturally. To fix this, you need to learn English words directly in English. This means using an English-to-English learner's dictionary. These dictionaries are made for learners. They explain words using simple, easy-to-understand English, not your native language. For example, if you look up the word resilient, you won't see a one-word translation. Instead, the dictionary will say something like, able to become strong, healthy, or successful again after something bad happens. This is powerful for two reasons. You stay inside the English bubble. You are thinking in English to understand English. You get a much deeper understanding of the word than a single translation could ever give. Let me give you a story. Isabelle, a university student from France, was studying for an important English exam. She felt overwhelmed by long lists of words she had to memorize. She spent hours trying to learn words with flashcards that had French translations, but she kept forgetting them. Then she decided to try a new method. Instead of memorizing hundreds of words, she focused on learning 5 new words a day deeply, using context. Here's what she did. She read a short article in English and found a word she didn't know. For example, ambiguous. First, she guessed the meaning from context. The sentence said, the politician's statement was ambiguous, so nobody knew if he supported the new law or not. From this, she guessed it meant something like unclear. Next, she looked up ambiguous in her learner's dictionary. The definition said, able to be understood in more than one way, having more than one possible meaning. This confirmed her guess and gave her a clearer understanding. She then looked at example sentences in the dictionary and noticed patterns. For instance, ambiguous statement, ambiguous ending, highly ambiguous. Finally, she wrote 3 sentences of her own using the word. She made them personal and real for her. For example, the instructions for my new furniture were ambiguous, so it was hard to build. I don't like movies with ambiguous endings. I want to know what happens. When I'm tired, my text messages can be a bit ambiguous. By doing this, Isabelle didn't just memorize a word. She formed a relationship with it. She understood its meaning in simple English, saw how it was used in real sentences, and connected it to her own life. The word became hers. This method may take more time each day, but it is far more effective. Instead of learning many words shallowly, you learn fewer words deeply, and you actually remember them. This is how you build a vocabulary that you can use naturally in conversation. Now, Let's talk about building a vocabulary that is already connected to your English thinking brain. This is the kind of vocabulary you don't have to translate in your head. You just know the word and its meaning in English. Let's try learning a word together right now. The word is versatile.
Versatile.
A learner's dictionary might define it as able to do many different things or to be used in many different ways. Here are some examples. A versatile actor can play many different types of characters: a hero, a villain, or a comedian. A versatile tool, like a Swiss Army knife, has many different functions. A versatile piece of clothing, like a simple black jacket, can be worn on many different occasions. Now take a moment and create your own sentence with the word versatile. It could be about a person or an object. For example, my friend is very versatile. She can cook, fix cars, and speak 3 languages. My smartphone is a very versatile device. By making your own sentence, you are taking the final step to make the word your own. Next, let's talk about preparing for high-pressure situations in English. We already mentioned mental rehearsal, but now I want to introduce a more advanced and active method called the simulation technique. This technique is perfect for events like a job interview, a presentation, or a parent-teacher meeting in English. Often, anxiety comes from fear of the unknown. The simulation technique removes that fear by making the unknown familiar. You practice so much that the real event feels just like another rehearsal. Here's how it works. Practice the full conversation out loud, playing both roles. Let's look at an example. David, a software developer from China, had a final job interview with his dream company in America. He was excellent at his job, but he was terrified his English might fail him under pressure. For 1 week before the interview, he used the simulation technique for 30 minutes each evening. First, he researched and wrote down 20 common interview questions for his field, like, "Tell me about yourself. What is your biggest weakness? Describe a challenging project you worked on." Then, he stood in front of a mirror and started the simulation. He played both roles, the interviewer and himself. For example, he would ask in a clear, professional voice as the interviewer, "Hello, David. Thank you for coming in today. To start, could you tell me a little bit about yourself?" Then he would switch and answer as himself. He would practice tone, body language, and eye contact, just like in a real interview. By doing this repeatedly, David reduced his anxiety and became confident. The real interview felt natural because he had already practiced every part of it. Then David would switch roles. He would answer the question as himself. The first few times he stumbled. He paused. He used filler words like or well. He wasn't happy with every answer, but that didn't matter. He finished the answer and immediately switched back to the interviewer. The interviewer would ask something new, for example. "That's interesting. Could you describe a time you had a conflict with a coworker and how you resolved it?" David would answer again. He did this every single day. He wasn't memorizing a script. He was practicing how to access his thoughts quickly and turn them into smooth, fluent English sentences. He also practiced body language in the mirror, how to stand, how to smile, and how to make gestures naturally. He even practiced asking questions at the end of the interview, just like a real candidate would. By the 5th day, things started to change. His answers began to flow naturally. He felt more comfortable and confident. He had already answered the question about his biggest weakness 5 times. He knew the story he wanted to tell. He had found the right words. The neural pathways in his brain were primed and ready. When David walked into the real interview, he was still a little nervous, but it was a different kind of nervousness. It wasn't fear anymore. It was excitement. The interviewer asked, So, to start, could you tell me a little bit about yourself? In David's mind, he smiled. He thought, I know this question. I'm ready. The conversation felt familiar. He had already practiced it many times. David got the job. He told me later that the simulation technique was the most important thing he did to prepare. It gave him the confidence to show his true self, not just his English skills. Now, I want to give you a challenge. Think of one specific English-speaking situation coming up that makes you nervous. It could be big or small. Maybe you need to call customer service. Maybe you have a meeting at work next week. Maybe you want to talk to a teacher or a friend in English. I want you to try the simulation technique. Write down the possible questions or conversation points. Say them out loud, playing both roles. Be the speaker and the listener. Repeat it many times until it feels a little boring. When it feels boring, that means your brain is ready. I want to be honest with you. Thinking in English instead of translating is not easy. It doesn't happen overnight. Some days, your brain will feel tired. You might want to go back to the old habit of translating. This is normal. The path to fluency is not a straight line. There are ups and downs. The key is to be patient and kind to yourself. Don't get angry when you notice yourself translating. Instead, notice it, acknowledge it, and gently guide your brain back to English. Oh, I was just translating that sentence. Okay, let me try again. Let me think in English. Every time you do this, you are strengthening a new neural pathway. You are making the thinking in English muscle stronger. Think of it like learning to ride a bicycle. At first, you have training wheels. Your training wheels are like your native language. They keep you from falling and help you get started. But you will never feel the freedom of cycling until you take the training wheels off. The first time you ride without them, it's scary. You wobble. You might even fall. But you get back on, and with practice, balancing becomes automatic. You stop thinking about it, you just ride. Learning to think in English is the same. You are taking off the training wheels of translation. It will feel wobbly at first, but with consistent practice, it will become your new normal. It will become automatic. Let me tell you one last story about me. When I was learning French, I was the queen of translation. I had notebooks filled with English words on one side and French words on the other. I was like a walking dictionary. But I couldn't have a real conversation. I knew thousands of words, but I couldn't think in French. I was trapped in translation. It was only when I immersed myself, practiced speaking, and trusted myself to form sentences in French that I finally started to speak naturally. I remember going to Paris for a study trip. One day, I sat at a cafe and wanted to order a croissant and a coffee. I practiced the sentence in my head many times, translating it from my own language into French. When I finally spoke, I was so focused on grammar and saying everything perfectly that I sounded like a robot. The waiter smiled kindly, but I felt embarrassed and foolish. Later that week, my friend, who was more fluent, took me to a park. We didn't talk much. We just watched the children playing, people walking their dogs, and couples having picnics. Then my friend gave me a simple task. Sophia, just describe what you see in your head. In simple French. Don't worry about mistakes. So I did. I said things like, a boy is playing with a red ball. A woman is reading a book. It was simple and basic, but it was the first time I had used French to directly observe the world. I wasn't translating. I was thinking in French. That afternoon in the park changed everything for me. It was the day I took off my training wheels. So, my dear listeners, here is your invitation. Take off your training wheels too. Start today. Start small. Look around you right now and label 3 things in English in your head. Tonight, while making dinner, narrate the process to yourself in simple English sentences. Tomorrow, on your way to work, describe the world outside your window and ask yourself questions about what you see. Change the language on your phone to English. Find a song in English and try shadowing it. Repeat it out loud like the singer. Pick a movie and watch it with English subtitles first. Then watch it again without subtitles. Start an English journal with just 1 sentence tonight. Learn 1 new word using the context method. Think about a situation you can simulate in English, like a meeting, phone call, or presentation. Be patient, be persistent, and celebrate the small victories. The moment you look at a dog and dog is the first word that comes to your mind, the moment you use a grammar pattern correctly without thinking about the rule, the moment you understand a new word from its context, these are the building blocks of fluency. By breaking the habit of translation, you are not just learning a new skill. You are unlocking a new way of experiencing the world. You are opening the door to a more confident, natural, and fluent you. You will begin to feel the rhythm of English, understand its nuances, and express your true personality without translating in your head. You will stop being a visitor to English and start feeling like a resident. Your relationship with English will change. It will stop being just a subject to study and become a living tool, a tool you use to think, feel, create, and connect. Thank you for joining me today on this episode of the Super English Talks. I hope it inspired you and gave you practical tools to start thinking in English. Remember to practice every day with the small exercises we talked about. You can do it. I truly believe in you. If you found this episode helpful, consider subscribing to the podcast so you don't miss future episodes. Turn on your notifications so you know right away when a new episode is released. Your support means the world. It helps us reach more English learners, just like you, who are ready to break through barriers and speak English with confidence.